I wanted to talk this week about the 42 stages of life that every person has to go through, trials and tribulations that a person has to do in order to reach his ultimate tachlis. Of course, the raya is from this week's parsha, it's Mas'y, but Mas'y starts off with the 42 places that Klal Yisrael had to go through in the Midbar in order to reach Eretz Yisrael. So the Torah enumerates every single one of these 42 places, obviously to tell us the general rule that there are 42 stops along life's path that we have to go through in order to reach our tachlis. What is our tachlis? We don't really know what the tachlis is, but we have to strive to meet the tachlis as long as we're alive. The only tachlis that we could think of that it is a tachlis of serving Hashem to our fullest capacity. As you see, the Torah went into every single detail of all 42 Mas'os. And now, first of all, what's the yichus? Why 42? So, Chazal teach us that Hashem has a name. It's called the Shem Mem Beis, which is the Shem of 42 Isius. We see it from the Tefillah of Ana B'Koyach. Those of you who have the proper Sidurim, we say Ana B'Koyach between right before L'Chadaydi. And if you look at the end of the lines, and most of the Sidurim they have it, you'll see each line at the end it has 6 letters, each one being the Rashi Tevis of that pasuk that you had just completed saying, and there's 7 of those lines. So 6 times 7 is 42. That is called Shem Mem Beis. Another place we see the Shem Mem Beis is in the beginning of the Torah, Bereshis Bara Elokim, and you count the first 42 Isius until Tayu Vavayu. So there the Torah tells us that those 42 Isius also Shem Mem Beis. The shtickle raya is because Medrash asks the question, if the Torah was created 2,000 years before the world, so how about all the stories about the Avos and Moshe Rabbeinu? If they didn't happen yet, how are you saying them in the Torah? And the answer is that the Torah was written, but it was all shemas, and all the shemas, there was no pauses in between letters and words. It was all just one long thing, which for us would be impossible to read. So it was all shemas. So you see, a little raya is here that the 42 shemas, 42 Isius of the first pasuk in the Torah, you see Taka is a shem, and the Baruch Ha'olam was revealed to us in one place, a shem. Now, of course, since there are trials and tribulations that everybody has to go through, so how do we sweeten that, so to speak, din? So before we get to the sweetening the din, that this name of Hashem, of 42 Isis, the Shem Mem Beis, is a Shem that helps us move up to have a bigger aliyah. That's what, and the raya is from one of the rayas is from this week's parsha. That you see this week's parsha that Klal Yisrael had to go 42 stops in order to reach the aliyah, which is going into Eretz Yisrael. You see, also Kaddish is also 42 words. In other words, it enables us to get 42 words to have an aliyah for the neshama that we're saying Kaddish for. You find it many other places also that the 42 is representing an aliyah of a neshama, an aliyah of a person's gashmias. In other words, that if you go through this, that you will come out always ahead. In other words, the only way a person can get through life is through nisyonis, and sometimes through yisurim. Of course, we don't know what the cheshbon is. Is the cheshbon taka that was this thing that happened to me, this thing that I was sick and I got better, was that considered one of the 42 nisyanis? Or I had a hard time finding a shidduch, is that considered one of the 42 nisyanis? We don't know a cheshbon. But any tzara that we have, we can attribute it to one of these 42 stops a long way that you have to have in life. And by you doing that, by you attributing it to that, it always gets you to the next step. Just as a mushal, if a person's going on many dates and they're getting frustrated that it's not working, it's not pshat that they're not finding the shidduch. The pshat is that they have to go through steps, either how many people they have to date or how many times they have to date or whatever it is. That's a step closer. That's part of their masa'is, which we don't know the cheshbon, but you have to go through the steps. The way to be mamtik this din, how do we sweeten this din? And that the Torah tells us v'dibar tabam. What is v'dibar tabam? V'dibar tabam means Talmud Torah. How do you see a sweetening in that word? Obviously, bam is the same letters as mem beis, just it's the reverse. So you say that when the first letter is closer to the beginning of the aleph beis, so then that is considered a sweetening of the din. In other words, if it would say, when we always say it, we say mem beis, and when we reverse it to beis mem, that itself is a sweetening of the din. So there's two parts here. One is the part of sweetening the din of the dibarta bam, that because bam means dvarim divrei Torah, and then also we see that we're switching around the order from mem beis to beis mem. How do you see that? So I'm just going to give you a shtickle raya, as you see it in Kabbalah learning. I'm not going to go into the details, but just to say it quickly, is that there is Shemus of Hashem, which is called Av Sag Ma Ben. So the Av is Ayin Beis, the Sag is Samach Gimel, the Ma is Mem Hey, and the last one is Beis Nun. So you see, the order was reversed from having first the multiple and then the singular. Why is it in the name of Ben, which is 52, why is it reversed? So on that, the Gaon says the reason is because since when we count the letters of the Manspach, which the Manspach is the 5 letters, which are the ICAs, which are coming at the end of each word. So when we count those, when we go through the Aleph Beis, right? So the last letter in the Aleph Beis, the numerical value is Tav, which is 400. The next one after that would be in the Chaf, which is 500. The next one after that would be the Mem, which is 600, right? So just as a shtickle raya, so first of all, in the Shem Beis Nun, so we reverse it because we don't want that the Nun Beis, we want that the Nun Beis should be a higher number than the Beis Nun. So therefore we make it, in the Nun is 702, and if you take the 7 of the 700, because the Nun becomes a 700, and 2, so the 702, 7 plus 2 is 9, and 9 represents Hashem MS. MS is also Mispakot on 9. So that's just on the sidebar, but what's negated to us over here is that we take the Mem, which is 600, and plus the 2, which is 602. Then if you add in another Hamtakas Hadin, which is the Ketires, which is 11. So 602 plus 11 is 613. So you see that the Vidibar Tabam is in order to be Mamtik the entire din. So also just as a raya, why do you see that in the end of the same parsha we have a din of Arei Miklat? L'chara, what is the shaykhis of Arei Miklat to the members Masa'is of a Yid going through during his lifetime, and Klal Yisrael went through in Eretz Yisrael, as you see. So first of all, why should the guy Bechal be punished? He was chopping wood, and the top of the axe flew off and killed the other guy. He didn't mean it. He didn't want to do it, but he still has to go to Arei Miklat. Why is he chayiv? Bechal, why is any shoygeg chayiv? He didn't mean to do it. He made a mistake. The answer is, of course, that since the person did other averas, and it was a thing called klipos misachsais, that like these bad ruchas grabbed onto him because he did other averas, and those things that grabbed onto him caused him to do this avera that happened b'shoygeg. In other words, a person falls a shot, he fell, The threat that but there was a malach, there was a mechabel that came and pushed him down. Either for his yisurim, that he should have yisurim, that he should have a kapara from it, or stam, for whatever reason. Of course, we don't know a cheshbon. But the same thing, the guy going into the Arei Miklat is the pshat, that he went into the Arei Miklat because he had other averis, and therefore he didn't have aver b'shogeg. Point of it is coming to show us that, again, that's one of the steps of the 42 masois that a person has to go through in his life. So therefore we should be zeicher, even though we don't know any cheshbonis, what's what, when it's going to happen, or anything like that. So, but we still have to just be aware that Rebbeinu Shalom is watching us and carrying us every single step of the way. And if you notice that I'm sitting in Yerushalayim, this is before, like right by Nets, we did it in order to be mekayim the pasuk lahagid ba'boiker chastecha, and we shall be zeicher to Geula Shalema.